One, two, 1, 2. Mic check. Mic check. 1, 2, 1, 2. If you can hear me, give me a one, please. Peace. Peace, Black Butterfly. I always appreciate you showing up. Peace, Shauna. Hope all is well with y'all this evening. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank y'all. We about to get going here. I have something that's been pressing on me, and I gotta talk about this. Some things that happened, I guess, last weekend. Yeah. Peace, poise, and polish. Peace, sage. Appreciate y'all being in the space this evening. I'm trying to gather my thoughts while I give a moment for a couple more folk to get in. And before I get rolling here, let's see. Thank you, Black Butterfly. Thank you. CRC in the house. Peace. So, okay, where do I begin? So, I drove home. mm, what's the day? Tuesday. I left Tuesday of last week. I think it was. I left to go home. Peace, Natalia. Everybody coming in. All right. I left Tuesday morning to drive up to North Carolina because I needed to help my mother clear out a storage unit and get some stuff, move the remaining stuff that we were going to keep over to a little smaller unit at her apartment in preparation for some other things that we are working on. So that's the theme of the trip. That's what that is what is the subject. The trip is the main event that sets the stage for this conversation that we're having tonight. Trying to get my mic a little hotter. Okay. Um so that was why the trip had to go down. Um where do I want to begin? We'll start here. There were do I want to start with the unit? No, let's start here. Before all of this, I did videos, and in one video I talked about there may have been a miracle that we missed, and we'll have a chance to revisit that miracle and maybe see it. And I talked about how to be careful of not missing a miracle because of a predetermined idea of how it's supposed to look and show up. Um, And I was saying that in reference to the upcoming Venus retrograde and Mercury retrograde. Um, and the fact that the sun would conjoin, which it's right about now, the sun should be conjoining Neptune. And while the sun conjoining Neptune can scatter our energy, scatter or break down our focus or make us less focused, there's another side to it where the sun is still the primary illuminator. So it can illuminate some of the energy surrounding Neptune, which can be a miracle. It can help us see something because Neptune helps us to merge with something unseen or some things unseen. And the sun, when those two share energetic space, the sun can shine light on those things that we call spiritual, you know? So it's not all negative, as in sun conjoining Neptune, we're confused and, out of touch with reality and may not have as much direction. Yeah, those things can happen, but it can also be a time where sometimes we need to be out of touch with reality so we can touch something beyond reality, you know? So that's what astrology does. It makes you see both sides of the coin because it is a game of relationship. Everything with astrology is relationship. Nodes, relationship. Signs, relationship. Because every sign has a reflector, you know? Everything's relationship. Um, but I gotta get my train of thought back where I was about to go with that. Um, yeah. So I talked about the miracle that we may have a chance to revisit that maybe we didn't see. I talked about the upcoming eclipse and the energy around Deneb El Asad and um, the fact that Saturn was opposing that eclipsed moon while conjoining the sun and how it could bring about feelings of limitation and doubt and worry, and that was going to be a challenge to still hold whatever the vision was to hold, and the vision aligns with the what, which is Pisces. Pisces is what would you imagine to be to bring into your reality, and Virgo is but how are we going to do it? So the challenge was to not lose the what because we don't necessarily know the how right now, right? We talked about all of that. In the beginning was the word. That thing holds true on several levels. It especially holds true when you deliver messages through like these types of channels, broadcasting a message, goes out because it reverberates and words really do have power. And so um, you're more, you may be more likely to live it out. So here I said all this stuff and had these examples, life examples, to mirror it back to remind me of the validity of what was said, you know, because um, I found myself in a situation where I'm telling my mother, like, mama, we're gonna figure it out, you know, don't worry about such and such and such, you know, we're gonna work all this out. My mother's 78 years old. She's tired, you know, um, and she has worked hard throughout her life, and she does not know anything but, and she happens to be a Virgo. So work is her religion, you know? And so here she is getting to a point where she's slowing down. She's in good health, but she just can't go like she used to. And she's having to make a big change at this time in life, which can be scary, which can create worry, right? So I'm having to talk her through, but not just talk. I got to show through action, you know, make the sacrifice, get across country, you know, get up there and provide some actual sweat equity and not just a bunch of gum service, you know. Um, but I too, in my personal walk, I'm having to live by my words, you know? Nobody is immune. You got to live, you got to practice what you preach, right? So that's the backdrop to all of this, right? So I go up there. I did a video while I was there of us at the city dump. And it just so happens that that city dump for Greensboro, which I think is new, they've adopted this new logo. And basically, this logo is a Ouroboros. Okay. You know, um, and if you know anything about the Ouroboros, it's basically a snake eating its own tail. And the Ouroboros is talking about the regenerative nature of existence. And that is why I would imagine they chose that symbol or logo, because this is the dump where, and it's also where I think they do recycling there. But either way, it is representing the cycle of life. Things grow and then they go through a stage of entropy, right? And that symbol itself also represents the void. It represents chaos. It represents destruction. The snake is destroying itself to recreate itself. All those themes we were living out in real time and after we had just gone through an eclipse. So all this stuff was on what was leading up to the eclipse, or the one of it was right around the eclipse. So that's the backdrop. Now, the unit that we ended up clearing out was unit 333. Now, I'm bringing this up because I want to show the value of studying. You don't have to be an expert, but you just need to. Because I was talking to my mother while we were doing what we were doing, and we we got to a point where I had to convince her to go ahead and give away some of her remaining school supplies. And I could just see how it hurt her, because just my mother, she is a teacher to the core, you know. So she still has all these different little tools and things that she's holding on to. And she was going through them as she was getting ready to call a friend of hers, younger lady who's new into teaching. She was going to have her come over there and get some of this stuff. And as she was looking through it, she was saying, I just never stopped learning, because my mother always thought she didn't know anything. My mother's a master teacher, a master, 40 years teaching the children that they threw in her room who they had already disregarded, children who couldn't read, who weren't reading at level. Most of the children from the projects, Hillcrest, Klondike, they put her in her class because they were considered to be problem children. And she would get in there and sing. You know, her room was full of bright colors, and she could get these children under control. And she knew how she could get them under control and motivated to learn. And she had a saying. She said the teachers would be mad about the children running into school. She said, "Well, children don't run to danger." So she said, "Be happy that they're running in here into the school versus trying to run out of here." So my mother was is a lot wiser than she even knows. She just doesn't have the self-confidence to recognize it. She's a master. And what the true sign, one of the true signs of a master is they're always thirsty to learn. The master is not the one who's always going around proclaiming themselves to be a master. The true master oftentimes is the one who will rarely refer to themselves as a master. But if you watch them, you will see mastery demonstrated. And when she said, "I always remain," I just couldn't get enough. I just was, and she's just looking through the stuff like, and her mind is going on how this could be used in the classroom, you know. Um, so the reason I bring that up is to say, stay thirsty, stay hungry, because when you keep studying, what I'm going to try to present to you this tonight is a demonstration of how my path of studying, how it works for me. Now, this also deals with certain aspects of my chart. I have certain things make me that make the environment talk to me. But I would go on to say that if the environment's talking to me, it's talking to everybody. The only difference is I'm listening, you know? There's a word and then there has to be a hearing of the word. There's a expression and there must be a reception. So it ain't like I'm magical to where um only I can hear and see these things. Everybody's living in the same environment, you know? But I think because of certain configurations, I'm more tuned in to be, oh, look at that. That's got a meaning behind it. You know, always looking for a meaning in things, maybe to my detriment sometimes. But I'd rather be on the side of being overly concerned with looking for meaning than to be ignorant and ignoring a world that is rich, full of meaning and purpose, but I can't see it because I'm locked in on something mundane. So the unit that we cleared out, the unit is 333. That was the number of the unit. And, I must admit, I'm terrible about, I'd be like, okay, I got this series of that I did on 111, 222, and I'm gonna put them. I said that probably a year and a half ago. I ain't put the rest of them up yet because I got a breakdown on 333, 444, 555, and they are not like, the run of the mill breakdown. So let me give you a little glimpse of how I looked at 333, and I'm gonna show you how all this ties in. Okay. When I look at this number, I look at it through the lens of Hebrew gematria. Okay. And very basic, very basic. So let's go back to when we were little children. What we learned. This is the hundreds column. This is the tens, and this is the ones. Okay. So if we go by that when we dissect this number, then this would be 300. This would be 30. And this would be 3. This is the letter Shin, which has a value of 300. Okay. This would be equivalent to the letter Lamet, has a value of 30. This would be equivalent to the Gimel, which has a value of 3. Now, each letter in Hebrew, like we've talked about 10,000 times, but it's worth revisiting. Each letter has um, a myriad of meanings. It's a rich language that is designed. It is an occult language. It is the epitome of occultism, Hebrew. So if you look at Shin, what I did was I took the liberty to spell that letter all the way out because each letter is a word. So that Shin would be spelled thus. It's a Shin, a Yud, and a Nun. That's how you draw write a final Nun. Now, if we take that value in its regular form, it's 360. Now, what's significant about that? Well, y'all know 360 degrees is a circle, and that 360 reduces to 9. 333 reduces to 9. This is very relevant to the situation that we were in. We were going to a place where the logo is an Ouroboros, which is a circle, also a zero. It's a revolution. Things are coming full circle. Something is ending, something is beginning. The circle is the epitome of chaos and order at the same time. Because on a circle, all points of reality exist at one time because there are no breaks in the circle. It is one continuous line. The circle is the geometric foundation for manifestation because all things come into reality through a circle. Because all things that can exist are existing at one time on the circle. So the circle is the storm, but the circle is also divine harmony, all at one time. Now, when you look at the full spelling of this letter Hebrew that we have spelled out into the word shin, the word shin also is a word for breathing. Okay. It also, this same word, shin, can also be used for urine. That's very interesting. Now, come on, Jamal. How you gonna try to pin this one together? Come on, Mr. Philosopher. How you gonna piece? What is breathing and urine? What could they possibly have to do with each other? It's an energy exchange. Yeah, yeah. It's an energy exchange. Inhalation, exhalation. Urine represents an energy exchange. You have taken in the waters of life. Now you are releasing them. This energy exchange then also denotes alchemy because you are taking something in one form and you're transforming it into another. You're taking in oxygen, you're sending out carbon dioxide, but then you're pulling back oxygen again, sending out carbon dioxide. Decay becomes life. Life becomes decay. Decay becomes life. Water comes in, it is taken in and balanced through the kidneys, and then squeezed, the essence is received and the rest is sent out. Urine. It's a balancing act. It's an exchange. But also that urine has nitrogen in it and other properties that can be used to then support life. It can then be used for things to grow. So again, there's this alchemical process here hidden in this little simple letter. It's not by happenstance that when it's spelled out, it's 360. The 30, the 30 coinciding with the Lamed, and Lamed is the tallest letter in the Hebrew alphabet. So think of the Lamed like the light post in your city. You know, you're driving down the highway and the tall lights, and you're in the parking lot at the retail outlet or shops or whatever, and those big tall lights that illuminate the parking lot. Think of Lamed. It even kind of looks, look at how you, it even kind of looks like a, you know, like a street light looking over, you know? And so in its design is giving us a clue. Higher learning, illumination. The Lamed also can serve as a preposition leading to. What does a preposition do? It leads us to the next thought. Preposition. Lamed referred to as the ox goad. So if Aleph is where divinity hides itself, and it hides itself into a plus sign, and it's so powerful it's already starting to spin it. The Lamed is a quick get my get my my bundle. Get my bundle. I lay it out in the 2020 booklet inside of my bundle. That's where we get our plus sign and our multiplication sign. It's from the Aleph. God adding to itself, multiplying itself, hiding itself. As it comes out of the storm cloud of chaos, it hides itself into the Aleph, which the Aleph coincides with the ox. So when you get to the Lamed, the ox goad, when we goad something, we're prodding it to go forward. So in other words, the Lamed tells us that when we learn, it moves God force forward. All of us have divinity in us, but it lies dormant until we prod it or goad it to move. The three is the Gimel, and the Gimel represents nourishment. It represents the child. It represents beauty. It represents perfection, travel, communication. These are all things that's, travel, I'm going somewhere. If communicate, I'm going somewhere. The child is the going somewhere of the two parents. The child represents the the travel of those two parents' energy. Those two parents have come together and united their energy, and those energies have become something of their own, has traveled away from them to create something, a third something, which is the child, which is considered to be the perfection, because the three is the resolution of duality. Oh, I'm this and you're that. But we come together and we create a third. That's why in astrology, when you create a composite chart, you're looking at what entity do you all create together? Yeah, you have your own chart. You got your own chart, but what's the entity that you all create together? What's this third thing? That every relationship has a child, whether you have a physical child or not. You already have a child because you have an identity that you create of that the relationship creates, which is not you and it's not the other person. It's a excuse me, it's a third something. It's something different. This is what the Gimel represents. So I'm gonna tie all this together. All right. I wrote this. I wanna just kind of meld this together. The ultimate journey is the alchemical one, where a decay slash degradation has occurred, allowing for new ways of thinking, a new mindset, new synapses are formed. The breath and urine coincide with Mercury and Venus, one governing the lungs and the other the kidneys. Both are involved in maintaining balance through an intricate system of exchange, release, and acquisition. This is how life continues, through release and acquisition. All right. So this is the symbolism I'm seeing around this 333. Because guess what my mother's having to do? With my help, she was having to release things so she could continue to live. Mama, this bed is this is this headboard. I know it's a big nice headboard and this footboard and all, but it's, you can see there's the wood is starting to break down, and it's this thing is, we gotta let it go. Let's let it go. And she didn't fight me, you know. Mama, sit down. I got it. You know, got that thing up on the truck, and you saw us at the whatever the I can't even think of the name, the pound or whatever, throwing all that stuff away at the it's on the tip of my tongue. The landfill, throwing all that stuff away. Okay. We had to release some things. But at the same time, we also had to make decisions, Virgo, sifting through, making decisions about, well, what are we going to keep? What do we still see has value? So we had to release some stuff, move some stuff. And at the end of the day, that unit had to be cleared out so that she could continue to live financially and metaphorically, because it was a financial burden. And the number that we reduced her financial burden was $90. Another nine. Releasing that nine, you know what I'm saying? Completing that cycle allow her to be able to be in position to move into another cycle. This is to me, I'm trying to show the value of study because if you study, you'll see everything's talking to us all the time. Numbers, words, vehicles, everything talking to us. And we sometimes need to have, we need to be able to tap in to the divine song. All this shit is a song. That's all it is. Sometimes we're a little out of key. Sometimes we're way out of key. And sometimes we have universal markers around us to help us find our way to get back on key. Angels, angles all around us, angles of light. Like, hey, maybe you should sing this one this way, da 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 da, trying to help us get back on key. So, the next thing I want to talk about is the four discouragements. Four discouragements. But before I do, the trip was wildly successful. I got up there, I left Tuesday, got to Atlanta, stayed at my cousin's house overnight, didn't have to spend no money on a room, got up the next morning, drove up to North Carolina, got there by the afternoon. My mama had her usual spaghetti waiting, tore into that. And then, like I said, my mother's friend came over that evening because I'm pushing my mama. Mama, can we just go on and call her? Can we go on and drop it over at her house? Let's get this stuff moving. I wasn't expecting the girl to come that evening. She showed up over there. So we already made progress. She took some stuff out of there. I said, oh, this is a sign, mama. We're rolling. So we got a little excited and got some more stuff and took it to Goodwill. So we were already ahead of schedule. Progress on the first day. The weather, perfect the whole time while I was there. Perfect. So that Thursday we get up and did all this stuff that I just told you about. Friday, I went and was able to go and get me a workout in. Um, and then we got word that a storm was coming. Crazy storm. So I was going to leave Sunday, but I chose to go ahead and leave Saturday morning because I was trying to get ahead of the storm. All right. And that's where we go next. All right. So I had three discouragements while traveling back to Texas. But I had one, the first discouragement, because there were four. The first discouragement happened before I even left. Now, my mechanic, I go to Fort Worth to my mechanic. This is before I left. And I know I'm jumping all around. Go back and watch the video again if it's confusing you. But before I left, I went and hollered at Carl. And he's like, I always get I always get an oil change before I get on the road, get all my hoses checked, get all my fluids topped off, and just I have him go on and just look for if he can see any leaks. Okay. And he's like, big dog, I think he's all right, you know. He's like, how far are you traveling? I said, man, I'm going all the way to North Carolina. You know, it's like, oh well shit, man. You doing that, man. I wouldn't drive my vehicle, put all that wear and tear on my vehicle, you know. Um, I would just rent. Now, what he was saying came from a good place. He's a trusted mechanic of mine for years. And it made perfect common sense. Hell, I knew that, it made perfect common sense. But here's the deal. We couldn't afford to go and spend $1,000 right now on a rental. Okay. But I said, you know what? I'm gonna at least consider it. So I went up there to the rental place just to see what would it, and it was like, yeah, it's gotta be $900. I said, well, I said, if I get up here and it's too ridiculous, that's gonna be my sign. I ain't got no other option. I'm just gonna have to drive my truck, you know, which my truck is a workhorse, you know. I've driven it across country several times. But the eclipse that was coming up, mind you, this is before the eclipse. The eclipse was coming up. South node eclipse in Virgo, because the north node is in Pisces. Now, you were going to say common sense would align to one of those. Which one would you associate common sense with? Virgo, right? Of course, Virgo. And it made perfect common sense. Don't put this wear and tear on your vehicle, get you. But faith, which side would I would put faith more on? That would go more towards the Pisces side. So my first discouragement came from a good place from my mechanic, but I had to consider it because the eclipse point was conjoining, I said, the fixed star Deneb al Asad, which is a star that is like kind of Uranian, you know, um, goes against the grain, maverick, don't care about what everybody else is doing, right? But um, it's one that reminds us that hey, maybe you should still consider the other side of things. So I said, I'm gonna do my due diligence. I'm not gonna be normal Jamal. Okay, I'm gonna let me listen. So I listened, I considered, which was the message around this eclipse. Consider it. You ain't gotta follow but maybe just see what they saying. So I considered. But at the end of the day, I made a decision. I'm driving my truck. I'm going. I ain't got no other. My mama need help. We already made plans. I'm going. Shit, I'm gonna be fine. First discouragement. Now the last three discouragements. Now these were real. This is when the game got real, and this is why the name of this little talk is "Into the Eye of the Storm: Chasing Sunlight." Now, um, uh, mind you, I left on Saturday because I was trying to avoid a storm. Listen to what I just said. I left early because I was trying to avoid a storm. And what happened was I was rolling. I got to Atlanta in like 4 hours and some change. I came through Atlanta, um, burning. Phew. From Atlanta to Birmingham is like 2 hours. Scorched through there. Bam. And my landmark is to get to Leeds. Leeds is like 13 miles outside of Birmingham, to the east of Birmingham. And they got this huge gas station called Bucky's. It's got to be one of the largest ones in Alabama. So we always stop there. Since I'm by myself, I ran in there. I peed real quick. I got me some coffee and I was out. But I get back in my truck and I'm looking at the sky. And you know when a storm's coming, the wind started picking up and the sky started getting darker, you know? And I'm like, oh boy. But I'm like, oh well. Because in my mind, I'm thinking if I keep pushing, I can get ahead, maybe get ahead of this storm. But I'm watching on the my weather on my phone, my different stops, and I'm seeing that in Mississippi, that rain coming down, and it's like all day they calling for rain in Vicksburg. Because when you get to Vicksburg, you're right there at the Mississippi River. When you get through Vicksburg, you cross over the Mississippi River into Louisiana. Okay, so I was that's another major landmark for me when I'm going down I-20. So the further I get away from Birmingham, further I get away from Leeds, by the time I get to Birmingham, which is just 13 more miles to the west, it's picking up more. And I can see it's getting ugly. Then when I get past Birmingham, now the rain starts coming down and it increasingly gets heavier. So I start surfing through the stations. Um, and I found a local station from Tuscaloosa. Okay. And there's this radio personality named James Spann. James Spann. Oh, let me back up. Let me back up. Let me back up. I forgot a major thing. I forgot a major detail. After I got my gas at Bucky's, I sat there at the pump and it wasn't a prayer like, Lord, please protect. It wasn't, it was, I entreated. I entreated all forces that moved water and wind. And I can't even remember. This is how I know that this was like a movie. This whole scene was like a movie. And it was so spiritual. I can't even remember what all I said. All I said, I entreat you to control this weather and to create a pathway for me. I kept wanting to say vortex, but I was like, I don't want to say vortex because that's what these tornadoes are vortexes. But that's what I really wanted to say was vortex. But I was like, create a pathway for me. And I kept saying, I'm protected. I'm protected. Create a pathway for me. And I tried to use my mind and envision like something out of Lord of the Rings or something. And try to envision like this like a tunnel that I was moving through. Now listen to this. So back to where I am, where I was before I detoured. I'm going west on 20. I've gotten to Birmingham. Weather's looking crazy. I have found James Spann and this other Tuscaloosa. He's coming in, breaking in on their broadcasts from time to time to get these updates. But even the main station, they're constantly talking about the weather because it's like they're saying there are 5 tornadoes that roughly that are around here. Five. Number of change. Venus number two, but it's the it's also the number of change because it's breaking from the form of the four, the box, and something has emerged. It's change. So they're talking about these, and then they start talking about this thing is going to hit Tuscaloosa in 52 minutes. And where I was 33 or 30 minutes or so from Tuscaloosa. So I'm hauling ass. But at the same time, the wind picking up and I can't drive like I normally. I'm having to drive with two hands. because the wind is like, it's getting a little, and the rain's starting to come down. I'm steady listening to the doggone reports, and they're saying if you don't have to get off the highways, and they're telling you all the places to go and shelter, this elementary school shelter. And I don't know shit about Alabama, so they're calling out all these different cities, Utah and such. And as I'm going, I'm looking, I don't, so where's Greene County? Where is such and such? Okay, so James Spann would become the second discouragement because his, again, coming from a place of safety, he's doing his job. He's a meteorologist. If my children were on the highway, I would tell them, get your ass off the highway now. If you ain't got no money, I'll cash app you something. Go get a room, get off the highway now. Common sense. As a parent, if my wife was on the highway, if my brother was on, I'm like, man, if my niece was on, get off that damn highway, you know. But I could not stop. Hell, I'm by myself. I'm in Alabama. So I'm like, man, I'm keeping on going. Like, what the hell I'm gonna go? I can't turn back, you know. I gotta keep going forward. But he was the second discouragement. I'm gonna tell you something. And you might think that I'm trying too hard to make something um meaningful out of all this. But once again, I say, when you study, you have more things available for you to access into your consciousness. He was reporting on 92.9 FM. Okay. That were their call numbers or whatever. So let's reduce this to 11. If you know anything about numerology, 11 is a master number. So we can hold that 11 right there. And that 9, we bring that down. So we've got 119. All right. I want to show you something. One of the Hebrew words with a value of 119 is Benoni. Now, who is Benoni? This is how it is. Ben Oni. Ben Oni. Okay. Who is this character? In the book of Genesis, one of Jacob's wives, Rachel gives birth to Ben-Oni, and Rachel dies in childbirth, according to the mythology. Now, Ben-Oni means son of sorrow. Mm. He comes out of sorrow. Okay. But his father, Jacob, would change his name to Benjamin, which means son of the right hand. Okay. Now, what's significant about this? First of all, I want you to look at this. This part of it has a value of 52. This part of, I'm talking about Ben Ani. This part has a value of 67. Now, what's significant about that? There's another word that also adds up to 67. It is Binah, which is the third sphere on the tree of life. And Binah, which is spelled, if I remember correctly, uh, just like that. 50, 60, 62. Yeah. That right there is Binah. I'm going to erase some stuff. Okay. That's Binah. Now, what is Binah? Binah is referred to as the barren mother. And you know, in the Bible, the barren mothers were always in a state of sorrow. See how that coincides? His name, Ani, 67, coincides with Binah, barren mother, which then links back to sorrow, son of sorrow. But his name is changed to Benjamin, son of the right hand. Now, his mother, Rachel, they don't give any meaning for her name. It's just that she's the daughter of Laban. Now, if you know anything, Laban means white. Laban also means milk or yogurt. So, so she's the daughter of milk, milk, because it's either her, somebody, another rendering has it as you, EWE, which is a U, which refers to the sheep. So, but that also is tying back to milk again. Now, milk is another word is lactose, a type of sugar. Now, there are two, there are in sugar, there's a sugar that spins to the right, and there's a sugar that spins to the left. If my memory serves me correct, dextrose is the one that has a right orientation. Fructose has a left orientation. Now, okay, y'all might be thinking, what the hell does this have to do with any of this? I made the deduction that Ben-Oni is referring to the left hand, which I am left-handed. And did you know that the word left, the left hand is where we get the word sinister? Sinister refers to the left hand. So through that association, it will also associate with chaos. Then the right hand would be order. The left hand is centrifugal, undoing. The right hand is centripetal, which is organizing. Rachel represents the end of a cycle or a circle, which would be chaos. The left hand, the undoing of a previous order. And the right hand represents the centripetal or the dextrose or the emergence of a new order. I gleaned this from 92.9 FM. Add those numbers up. And the Personality, the meteorologist, is talking about a storm that is all around. This storm is coming up through Mississippi. He was talking about it was coming out of, he kept saying, what was it, Hickory? Some these towns he kept naming in Mississippi, and it's moving northeast and da 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 da. And it's like it's coming right at me. But I'm like, okay, if it's supposed to hit Tuscaloosa in 50 minutes and I'm 30 minutes, okay, maybe I'm gonna be just uh west of the main flow of the storm. But either way, James Spann, in his cautioning about taking shelter and talking about the storm, represented my second discouragement. And it all made sense. Carl made perfect sense saying, don't you take your truck. James Spann made perfect sense saying, don't you be out there on that highway. You better go find you. And I'm thinking, I'm in fucking Alabama. And my big black ass gonna show up at some elementary school. I tell you what, gonna get that shotgun, you know. So I'm like, I'm keeping up. I gotta keep going. All right. So I'm pressing on, and I'm telling you, the chaos is getting worse. This weather is getting, I mean, now the rain's starting to go a little sideways, and it's getting so bad that now I got to put my hazard lights on so that people coming behind me can see that there's something in front of them and we don't have no wreck. You know, I got to slow down, and I'm like, oh boy, the 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 tension is just like, you know, you could cut the air with a butter knife. You know, it's just I'm like, man, I don't know, boy. I might have messed up on this one. So I end up getting to, I started by this time, I'm starting to see some of the towns that James Spann has been talking about. And what's funny is that I talked about the U in association with Rachel. And remember, Rachel is son, or I keep saying son. She's the daughter of Laban. She's the daughter of white. And one way we can interpret that is a white light or the full spectrum of light. What's interesting is that the place where I ended up taking my next stop was called Utah. Utah, Alabama. U, Utah, Alabama. And they kept talking about Utah, and they kept talking about the something Tumbegi River and da 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 da. All these places I started coming up. I was like, oh shit, this one. So in other words, the tornado had just touched down where I had just come through. So sidebar, in reflection, what had happened was the prayer slash entreating or invocation that I did at Bucky's in Leeds is exactly what unfolded. You gotta think, I'm going west on I-20. The storm is coming up. Was it? They kept talking about I-45 or something like that. So the storm is coming at me like this, behind me. But mind you, I had also thought about trying to swing up 59 and get on I-40. Couldn't do it. Storms was all up in Tennessee too. So in other words, that was a vortex that had been created for me, and the only way for me to go was straight ahead down I-20. There was no common sense. There was no logic. All I had was, if you will, was faith and fidelity. I had to trust that a way had been made for me, because at this point, in the beginning was a word, my words had become etched into reality. There wasn't nowhere else, because I asked for it. I asked for a pathway down 20. I didn't ask for a way to get up to I-40. I didn't ask for some way to swing down into southern Mississippi. No, I asked for a path. And in my mind, I was thinking I-20. I try to envision myself getting all the way to the front door of my house. And that's what unfolded. There was nowhere else for me to go. Now, I want to say this too, because I didn't finish about Ben Oni. Before I finish with Utah, I gotta close this out here. Ben Oni, okay, son of sorrow. But if you reverse this, you get 9/11. How does the book of Genesis begin? Be Reshit. Reshit means beginning. In the beginning. So from sorrow or chaos, a new beginning is being birthed. If I catch this little, I'm tired of this little fucking whatever it is. Um, so I want to stop for a second. Do If anyone who may receive this message may be feeling like right now you catching an unfavorable dose of shit in your life, and the frustrations of life keep building and building and building, and it's just like, I'm about to break. I can't take no more of this shit. I'm tired of this. I'm hoping that this resonates. The reverse of 119 is the beginning. The reverse of sorrow and chaos and disorder and disharmony is a beginning. We see this science played out over and over, that as things decay and as things fall away, and it seems like things are being destroyed, that there's a purpose and there is an actual order behind it. But it is hard to see that when you are seeing the storm as something happening to you. But what about if you can, as crazy as this sounds, what if we can become the storm? What is the storm thinking when it's doing what it's doing? What is this, and I was talking to my wife about this. You know, great defenses in sports, when you go against them, you feel like you're going against just pure chaos. People coming from everywhere, they're blitzing, they sending, you got a system for how you're going to block, but it ain't working because people coming everywhere. but they actually have an order to what they're doing, but to you it feels like pure chaos and you don't know how to adjust to it. Conversely, great offenses take like Kansas City Chiefs, you know, although they lost the Super Bowl, their offense runs to defenses it appears as chaos. The way they shift, the way they run pick routes, one wide receiver, two wide receivers going to the left, one wide receiver comes off their hip and comes behind, and they create a wall that the defender can't get through. It just seems like chaos. Great teams master the art of becoming the storm. Back in the 90s, Arizona had this great defense, and they called them the Desert Storm, you know? And it may just sound philosophical, but sometimes we got to figure out how to shift our mind into becoming the storm. Become the consciousness of the storm and not the victim of the storm, to where you just invite, not like no sadistic type of thing like, yeah, I love pain, yeah, stab me in my arm, pain, ooh. No, I mean like saying, I invite the destruction of an old paradigm. I'm ready to become something different. I'm ready to become something new. I'm tired of being scared. I'm tired of being scared of what if. Because sometimes we make moves trying to avoid a storm and end up in a storm. I'm calling myself trying to make a move to avoid a storm, and I get smack dab in one. And the only way out was for me to go through it. I ain't have no, there wasn't no release valve. There wasn't no, you know, uh, uh, stay of execution. I had to go through. So that was something that came up. It's like, yeah, become the storm. Become the storm. Act upon life. Stop letting life act upon me. Okay. So back to Utah. I get to Utah. Here's the third discouragement. And again, it came from a good place. I go to use the bathroom. I'm walking out. And this brother's like, man, I'm gonna have to get rid of this hat that I done water. I think he's assuming I'm another truck driver. And so I said, man, I said, where you coming from? I said, you eastbound or westbound? He said, I'm getting back to Texas. I said, oh shit, you going the same way I'm going. I said, I was trying to see if you had come through Mississippi and what it was looking like. So he tells me, he say, you ain't got this AccuWeather app? I was like, nah, I ain't got it. It's like, man, this is save you a whole bunch of problems. So he pulled it up and he showed me on his phone, and this just the massive line of storms coming through, and you could just see, and where we were, you could just see we were right in the thick of it. And he was like, man, my load ain't due till tomorrow. I'm about to shut it down. So once again, Denib El Asad, you know, consider the other perspective. Once again, this guy was making a suggestion based on what he was doing that came from a good place, common sense. Man, I'm about to throttle down. I ain't about to play around with this weather. I got in my truck. I downloaded that AccuWeather app. I backed my truck up over into another spot because, like, if I'm gonna have to hunker down, I'm gonna back up over here where I got me some room. I'm just gonna sit it out. And I looked at it, and Spirit just kept on telling me, no, try to get on down the road some more. And I think the rain might have eased up a little bit. Um, and I pushed on. That was the third discouragement. Now I have gotten to um close to the Mississippi line and it's getting ridiculous now. Now it's almost like the highway is almost at on the verge of flooding out on the highway. It's just so listen to this. Listen to this. Now this is some mind. This whole thing was just mind blowing. So I get to Meridian, Mississippi. I got three landmarks in Meridian. I got Meridian, I got Jackson, and then I got Vicksburg. And I know when I get to Vicksburg, it's another major accomplishment because I'm gonna cross over the Mississippi, and I'm in Louisiana, and I'm one state away from my home state. You know, this trip is a seven-state trip. You know, it is North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, then Texas. Okay, I get to Meridian, and like I tell you, it's crazy. It's ridiculous out here. So I come up on an exit, and the exit is exit 152. Okay, exit 152. So these exits are going down in numbers. So 152, they have this big old flashing yellow sign at the exit, and it says Avenue 22, or it might have been 22nd Avenue, something like that. It was 22 and Avenue, either way. Um, and it said it was one of those dual exits where you can get off on two streets. The street name, look at this shit, was Quitman. So quit, this is how I interpreted it. Quit, man. And I just chuckled because my birthday is February 2nd, which is 2 2. I was born in room 202. So whenever I see a 22, it really stands out to me. So I chuckled. I said, "Oh, that's very funny." I said, "Oh, okay. So spirit is really testing me." So you're gonna have a sign up that says, "Quit, man. Give up." So me being old hard-headed Aquarius, I keep on going. But now, now I'm scared. So I get to exit 151 and I decide I'm getting on off. Okay. I'm getting off because this is crazy. I need to go and sit down for a minute, and I done learned my lesson. Now I exited 151. Now I can't remember if this truck said um if the truck says super ego, because there's a line of trucks that have super ego on the side. It was either super ego or it was Swift, this truck I was behind. Now this one is self-explanatory. Okay. This one is etymology. The etymology of this word basically points back to a storm cloud. So whether that truck said super ego or storm, it was very fitting symbolically for this moment. Either way, the truck When we got off on the exit, this truck was in front of me. Actually, it was two trucks, but the lead truck is the one I was looking at. And the flooding was so bad they had blocked off they had blocked off the street. There was nowhere to go. So we ended up turning down into this little service road where there was a business at. The two trucks went on and made U-turns. The water was so high, I stopped and I backed up into a parking lot at this business and I said, I'm just gonna have to sit here and wait this out. While I'm doing that, the truck comes back across, crosses my face, stops. It's a brother. He lets his window down. He said, "Man, they say get off right here on the exit and there ain't nowhere we can go." I said, "Well, what?" I said, "Well, what you gonna do?" He said, "Man, I'm just gonna try to go down to the next one. Get back. I'm gonna have to get back on the highway." So I said, "All right." I follow him. Okay. Now we finally managed to get ourselves back on the highway. But before I continue with how things unfolded, I must say this, that why this won't erase. Um that I want to look at 151 is significant because that's the exit that I chose to get off on. I'm gonna show you some words, some Hebrew words that coincide with 151. One of them is Sufa. Now look at this letter I'm drawing. That's a Semet. Um, that spells Sufa. And what that means is storm. And it has a numeric value of 151. Sufa. Now looking at Suf, if you get my book, that 2020 in the world to come, I show a correlation between Suf, as in the Sufi, the Arabic cipher, the cipher. I can't remember how to spell it. It may be the zero, how they all tie in, and the word suffering, and the Arabic asfar, because asfar reduces to the consonants SFR, the same as cipher and suffer, but the root is suf. The zero that I show the connection with, the zero means the void, and the void is chaos. And when you read the beginning of the Torah or the five books of Moses, it starts with chaos. It must be chaos first, which shows the degradation of a previous cycle before there can be a let there be light. There can't be no light if there's no darkness first. And the zero represents the chaos, the void, the nothingness that also possesses everything at the same time. And then when we see it in this sufa, we see that the word begins with a sumek, and the sumek is what? An Ouroboros that we talked about earlier. The sumek is the snake eating its own tail. And it just so happens that it forms the word storm. But to keep tying into the message and the theme that I'm trying to get across here, let's look at something else. Here's another word, Makiva, that has a value of 151. Makiva, which is spelled, oh man, my pen is tripping. Mm, mm, mm. Makiva. Let me get the spelling here. That's a mem. That's a kaf. That's a va. And then a hey. That spells Makiva, and Makiva means hope. Confidence. I'm having to write slow so my pen don't go out on me. Confidence. So the opposite of the storm, word with the same numeric value, speaks to hope, confidence. It also, in a different pointing, is a collection. Listen to this in relevance to the story. Collection, gathering together of water, a place where water flows together, a pool, a ritual bath of purification. And this let me know part of what this ritual. I, unbeknownst to myself, had been thrust into a ritual. And the word ritual means arrangement. I was being baptized into a new phase. I was being thrust into a pool of water. Purification, reformation, a final pointing for this particular reference is found in Deuteronomy 6 and 4, where it says, the Lord of gods, the Lord one. That phrase, Jehovah Elohim, or Yahweh, if you want to pronounce it that way, but Jehovah Elohim, Jehovah Ehid. Ehid means one. But when you take all those four words, Jehovah Elohim, Jehovah Echid, they add up to 151. So I knew that because that was the exit that I chose to get off, that I needed to file that back into my memory because I needed, when I got home, I know I needed to dig into my stuff and see what's that 151 Kabbalistically. 152 gave me the message and say, quit, give up, you know, all these tying into this discouragement, which that was the fourth discouragement, you know. The third was the truck driver in Utah. The fourth was the truck driver, the sign, and the situation in Meridian. And so when we got back on the highway, he got right off on 150, exit 150, which was the next exit, you know. And there was a big old gas station there, so I'm sure he was all right. But old Jamal, once again, I made a decision. Nah, I'm gonna keep on going because the rain had eased up some. Keep that in mind. The rain had eased up some. So I decided to keep on going. And this made me think, having to temporarily get off track or take a detour is a test to deter you. Having to take a temporary detour, getting off track is a test. Remember I said around that eclipse that Saturn opposing the moon is testing our magic. Endurance is testing the validity of your vision. I have a vision. I know it is powerful and I'm seeing it through. I'm talking about me right now, personally. I know it's powerful, you know? And so that situation was a real life enactment of having to hold the vision because the vision is I'm going to make it back to my house, to my family, right? That's the ultimate vision. I got a journey to complete, but I had to take a little detour. And so detours can be tests to see if you're going to get discouraged. On the flip side, detours can also allow you time to regroup. We're in the energy of a major detour right now because we have Venus retrograde, we have Mercury retrograde, and Mercury turned retrograde on the day of the eclipse. And it was an eclipse with Saturn opposing the moon. So we got and conjoining the sun. So we got all types of roadblock energy, all types of stagnation energy, all types of reasons to feel like shit just ain't working. It ain't gonna work. Life is against me. I'm a failure. Look at me. I thought I would be such and such by now. Oh, that's the trick. That's the trick. That's the trick. Trying to trick you out of your own magic. Because the trick is set up to see, are you really worthy of the vision that you have? Anybody can have a vision. Anybody can have an idea. Anybody can have a aha. But do you really believe in it yourself? Do you believe in it enough to suffer for it, to endure for it, to labor for it? Do you love that baby enough to get it into the world? That's the trick. And it really ain't a trick, as in playing around. It's a it's a test. It's a better word. It's a test. Am I worthy of my own greatness? God almighty. Am I worthy of my own greatness? Am I afraid? Am I afraid of my greatness? Am I afraid to suffer? Haven't I suffered enough? You know? So it may be thoughts like this that plague us. Um, so what happened was I got back on the highway, and at this time I still can get James Spann on the radio. And what I start to realize is that I have driven through Greene County. I've driven across the Tombigbee River. At all these places, James Spann was like,
tornado's gonna touch down here at such and such. Tornado's gonna touch down Greene County. We've got a tight circle cyclone. Blah blah blah. Blah.
What I came to realize is that I was passing all the places where the storm had gone through. I had already passed the storm. And by the time I got to Jackson, Mississippi, you would, the streets were a little wet still, but the sun came right out. Had to put my shades on. Sun was banging. And at that moment, I'm putting this conversation that we having right now. I'm starting to put the pieces. I said, I got the this might be the greatest talk I've ever given because this was a real live. And I called my wife. I said, I ain't scared of shit. I said, what can fuck with me if I'm on my path? Because see, here's the thing. If I would have been up there fucking around, you understand? I wouldn't have had the same protection. I went up there to look after my mother. I didn't go up there for nothing else. I wasn't trying to let me run out here to the club. You know, I'm shit. My wife ain't going. No, I was locked in. What I had to do, and when my job was done, my mama was sad because I was leaving the day early. I was like, Mom, I gotta go. I can't, But she was so thankful that, for the sacrifice. And I got back on that road and being where you supposed to be when you supposed to be somewhere also is a measure of protection. Cause I done been places where I ain't supposed to be before and got jammed up when I really didn't do nothing wrong, but I was wrong because I wasn't in my right frame of mind and wasn't where I was supposed to be, which left me open, you understand, to other things I might have been doing that I got jammed up because I wasn't where I was supposed to be. When so I came to the resolve that if I stay true to my path, I have nothing to fear. Even if I'm suffering, even if I'm struggling, I have nothing to fear. I drove through 5 motherfucking tornadoes and they went under me and above me and they did not touch me. I drove 17 hours from Greensboro, North Carolina to Dallas, Texas. One shot. Do it all the time. But this one was some perilous shit. There's a reason why so-called primitive cultures have such rich ceremony and ritual because it imprints your subconscious mind when you in a ritual where you're enacting, like you losing your life or you get cut and blood is shed and it imprints your psyche. That experience I will never forget. It imprinted my psyche and it let me know that I'm rolling with something.